Hello all you lovely people and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video we're going to be checking out Resident Evil 4 Remake on the Lenovo Legion Go. Now playing RE4 Remake is already a fantastic experience on the Legion Go. However, pushing for even higher frame rates and smoother gameplay can lead us to explore frame generation technologies like AMD's Fluid Motion Frames 2.1 and even Lossless Scaling Frame Generation 3.0. In fact, LSFG 3.0 has just had a recent update where you get something called Adaptive Frame Generation. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down of what the experience might be like when you play around with both these technologies, AFMF 2.1 and Lossless Scaling Frame Generation 3.0, with the latest adaptive frame generation as well. So kindly stick around till the end of the video. I'll show you all the in-game settings, AMD Adrenalin settings, the driver version that I'm playing with. So with that said, let's get started, folks. Let me start by talking about the driver version that I'm playing with. It's 25.3.1, which released on the 25th of February 2025, and this is the latest driver version that you can actually play with. Now prior to this, I had 25.2.1, and I also have a video on my channel which shows you how to download these drivers. So please feel free to check that out, how to sideload them. So the process remains the same because I've shown the installation of 24.12.1. The only thing that will change is the file. Instead of 24.12.1, you will download the file version of 25.3.1. So that's the only change. But coming back to the game now, I am playing with AFMF 2.1. And as you can see, it's been enabled. The search mode has been kept on high. And the performance mode is quality. I'm also playing with Radeon anti-lag turned on because whenever you use something like a frame generation software, the latency goes up and there's a bit of a lag. So to help counter that, you can use Radeon anti-lag. I'm using image sharpening instead of super resolution and I've kept that at 80%. Anti-aliasing method is multi-sampling. Morphological anti-aliasing has been enabled. Anisotropic filtering has been enabled, kept at 2x. Texture filtering quality is on performance mode and surface format optimization is also there. Now, I have kept the scaling mode on full panel and I've also turned on integer scaling. But in case you face any scaling issues, like when you change to 1200p and if you have like scaling issues, then I would recommend that you turn integer scaling off and also turn off GPU scaling from AMD Adrenalin. I'm playing at 800p resolution at a 144 Hz refresh rate. I'm going to start tracking the game. TDP is kept at performance mode. I've not started with any kind of FPS limit, whether it's from here or from AMD Adrenalin. So I'm not using chill, I've not kept an idle or a peak FPS, and I'm playing with uncapped FPS, not capped FPS here. I also want to show you my in-game settings. So the display settings, resolution is 800p, refresh rate is 144 Hz, and VSync is on. The FSR has been kept on performance mode. You can change this up to balanced, but performance is what gets you good performance in this game, so I'll keep it at that. Let's take a look at some of the other settings as well. And as you can see, I'm only utilizing 3.57 GB of VRAM. So texture quality, I've kept it at high and I've just kept it at 1 GB. If you take it up a notch, you are going to lose performance. Texture filtering is on high as well. And so is the mesh quality. Even that's kept on high. Shadow quality has been kept on mid. Shadow cache is on. Contact shadows is on. Screen space and ambient occlusion has been turned on. Volumetric lighting has also been kept on mid. Particle lighting quality has been kept on high and the bloom is on. Screen space reflections have been turned on. Apart from that, graphic dismemberment has been turned on as well. The persistent corpses, let's just keep it at few because we don't want it to be very intensive on the GPU. Motion blur, I generally turn it off in all my games. If you have seen any of my videos, you know I'm not a fan of motion blur, so I turn it off. But in case you want to turn it on, you can turn it on. Lens flare is on. Lens distortion is on as well. Depth of field is on because it helps with those cutscenes, it looks very cinematic. Even the resource intense lighting quality has been kept on low here. Intense FX quality is also on low. So these are my in-game settings, and even with these settings, I'm only utilizing 3.94 GB. I have allocated 6 GB to the VRAM from BIOS, and it's very simple to do that. You can check out any of the videos that are available online. And even with these settings on, I'm not even utilizing 4 GB of VRAM. And it says I have around 10.7 GB. So technically the game should run pretty well. And speaking of the game running well, let's take a look at what kind of FPS we can draw out from this game. The counter says that I'm getting over 80 FPS, close to 90 FPS, 85, 89 FPS. And generally with the FSR, there seems to be shimmering. But in this case, the shimmering is only a little bit around the trees in the background, not with the character. The character looks good. The hair looks good. No shimmering issues with the hair. But yeah, foliage seemed to be an issue. And another issue that you would notice with the trees in the background is ghosting. There seems to be a little bit of ghosting. And the trees in the background, while they're swaying, they don't seem to be swaying at the same FPS as our characters in the foreground. So the objects in the background seem to be in a different FPS. These happen in some games. So these are some of the things that you would notice if you really pay attention to it. Now, Resident Evil 4 is a reasonably well optimized title. So AFMF 2.1 really performs well, and it gives you this FPS uplift on the Legion Go. And depending on your in-game settings, like the settings that I've shown you in terms of resolution, in terms of graphical details, you might see frame rates jump from, let's say, 40 to 50 FPS over to 75 to 80 FPS. It was even going up to 85 to 90 FPS, close to that. This can, and this is definitely leading to a more smoother and a more responsive experience, especially during these fast-paced combat sequences against hordes of these zombies. And in terms of visual quality, being a driver level solution, AFMF 2.1 can sometimes introduce visual artifacts like the ghosting that I was talking about, or even blurring. Blurring does not seem to be an issue here, but ghosting definitely is, especially with objects in the background, not in the foreground. And the severity of these artifacts can also vary depending on the game and what locations you are in, what levels you are in, and the intensity of the frame generation can also matter. Because the more load that is on the GPU, that can lead to these scenes looking good or bad. You may notice some ghosting around the characters as well, generally in most of the games, but thankfully in RE4 Remake, this game is optimized pretty well. And with AFMF 2.1, there isn't a lot of ghosting around the characters. Even when you pan the camera around, right, left, or even if you shift the camera around really fast, there does not seem to be any ghosting. And with AFMF 2.1 and with anti-lag, the latency is also pretty decent, because generally with these frame generation softwares, you have a negative impact as far as latency goes. But with RE4 and with anti-lag, this is not an issue at all. In fact, you have precise aiming, you have quick reactions. So I did not personally face any kind of an input lag. The game runs really smooth, as you can see. And even at 800p, the game is looking really good. And it all boils down to how well it's been optimized. Yeah, I'm happy to report that this game has been optimized really well. I mean, really well. Here, I'm flawlessly getting 60 FPS. I did notice it dropping down to below 60 in just one instance there. Please note that there are a lot of enemies in the background. There are a lot of particle effects now, especially with the fire. And when you use a grenade launcher like this, you have a lot of smoke effects. So it does tend to take an impact on the frame rates. Let's take it up to 1200p and see how this impacts your FPS here. So we were getting over 60 FPS comfortably. We were even hovering over to 75 to 85 FPS. But now, when you take the resolution up to 1200p, you're only getting around 45 FPS. So the performance definitely takes a drop. Also, please note that we are using a frame generation software now. So whatever FPS you see on screen, that may not actually be the FPS. And this all boils down to how experienced of a gamer you are. Because the moment you see fake FPS being tracked there on the FPS counter, you will be able to tell. But in this case, I'm happy to report again that if it says 45 to 50 FPS, it feels like 45 to 50 FPS. And if it says 65, 70, 75 FPS, it did feel like that. But overall, it looks really nice and solid with AFMF 2.1. But I want to throw in LSFG 3.0 also in the mix because it just got a recent update where it gives you a couple of options like fixed or adaptive frame generation. So I want to show you how this game performs with that. I might even throw in a little side-by-side comparison just to show you how this performs. So let's get right into that. Alright, so the only thing that I would change in the graphical settings would be the screen resolution. Instead of going with 800p, I want to try it out with 1200p. And that's the only thing that I'm changing. And instead of going on to full screen, I have chosen to go along with windowed mode. So these are the only couple of settings that I've changed. All the other in-game settings that I've shown you earlier stays the same. Now, here when you come to LSFG now, you have a couple of more options like the mode. You can choose between fixed and adaptive, and there's something called a flow scale here. And for optimal smoothness, it says that it is recommended that you keep it at around 75% or 50% if you want 1440p and 4K resolution respectively. Now the in-game resolution, the display resolution is 1200p. That's what we are choosing to go along with. Let's see how this scales up. And also what I've done is in AMD Adrenaline, I have turned off all the other settings off. Like let's go into the settings again and turned all of that off. Like AFMF 2.1 turned off. Image sharpening turned off. So let's see how this game performs now with all these settings. I'll hit my hotkey to scale it up because I have assigned hotkeys to LSFG. And now when you scale it up, take a look at the frame rates. Man, it's 144 Hertz because that's what I had chosen. I'm sure I'm going to run into a lot of ghosting with this because the base frame rate is around, look at that. I mean, 17, 16 and still 144 Hertz. So the ghosting issue is definitely going to be there, I'm sure. So far, oh yeah. I mean, you can see that. Notice that everything looks sharp, by the way, when the character is still. But as soon as you move that camera around, man, it's not playable. This is definitely not playable. The settings that I had shown earlier, I was just trying to show you when you don't put it on the best setting, what kind of performance you will get out of LSFG. So people may lose heart. They may think that, oh, I wanted to keep it at that setting, and with those settings on now, just take a look at the performance. It's bad. Let's tweak it a bit now, shall we? Now let's go with the fixed mode instead of adaptive mode. The flow scale, I'm going to keep it at 75, but like I told you, let's choose the fixed mode now. In terms of the multiplier, let's start by keeping it at 2. So this should give me 2 times the frame rates, by the way. One more thing that you can do is cap the FPS. All these are capture settings, so I'm not going to spend time there because it's irrelevant. Scaling is happening from LSFG, so I have turned off any of the other upscaling from AMD Adrenaline. But now let's get back into the game, scale it up and see how this performs. So immediately you would notice that I'm getting around 45, 48 FPS, and this is at 1200p, guys. In terms of the sharpness, in terms of the visual fidelity, this is already looking much better than the adaptive frame generation, which was horrible in terms of ghosting. I mean, it was unplayable, especially when you were panning the camera around. Compared to AFMF 2.1, this is decent. Now you have to keep in mind that instead of playing at 800p, I was, of course, playing at 1200p. And what if I take the multiplier up to 3 times instead of 2? Or rather, let's take it up to 4 times because it was 2 times. So now let's take it up to 4 times. And now I'm in the 80 plus territory, but yeah, the ghosting is back. So when I pan the camera around, the ghosting is definitely noticeable. This is not something that I would recommend you do. So I will recommend taking the multiplier down. Instead of 4 times the multiplier, let's take it down one more level down. So let's see 3 instead of 2. So now I'm choosing to go along with 3. Let's see if this helps. 60 plus FPS. A little bit of ghosting is there, especially around the characters. So you see clearly this halo kind of a ghosting around the character. But this is still comparatively better to 4 times multiplier. And it is definitely way better than the adaptive frame generation, which was targeting 144 hertz. You can even choose to bring that 144 hertz down to 90 FPS and see if that helps. So LSFG 3.0 has had this big update very recently, and you can increase your performance of any game, not just Resident Evil 4. In fact, I do want to make a dedicated video on LSFG 3.0 with adaptive frame generation. I'll test out a few games and show you the performance. So 1200p is the resolution, and it looks mighty good, guys. I mean, at 1200p, in terms of visual fidelity, you're really up there. And it most definitely looks better than AFMF 2.1. And it performs well as well. I mean, we're talking about 60 plus FPS. So as long as you're not panning the camera very fast, if you're just walking around slowly, you can already see that this looks so much better than AFMF 2.1. But the moment you start panning the camera with 3 times the multiplier, yes, there's a noticeable ghosting around the characters. But if it's 2 times the multiplier, then it's still fine. It should be fine. But here it's 3 times the multiplier because the base FPS is actually only 22 FPS. So it's multiplying it 3 times. And as a result of that, you will notice ghosting around the characters. So it results in better visual quality. However, there are artifacts and there is a lot of ghosting because this is not a driver level solution. AFMF 2.1 is a driver level solution. And this will also have latency issues, just like any frame generation would have. So use this by testing out a lot of permutations and combinations because you may want to see what works out the best for you based on the game that you're playing. Here in RE4 Remake, I think 3 times multiplier is playable, but 4 times is unplayable. 2 times might also be playable, but you might have to dial the resolution down. So instead of 1200p, you can actually try it out with 900p. That should still look better than 800p that you were playing with when you had AFMF 2.1 on. So Lossless Scaling 3.1, I think, still has the edge over AFMF 2 when it comes to RE4 Remake. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments section. But I also want to show you a side-by-side very quickly, and this should give you further idea as to how this performs. That's it for this video, folks. I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, then please do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. Speaking of videos, I do make a lot of gaming videos like the one that you're watching right now. These are my Let's Play videos on my Lenovo Legion Go. Apart from this, I have game reviews, gameplay videos. I even have unboxing and review of items or products related to gaming that you can find on my channel. If you want to become a part of my community, all you gotta do is hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. And if you want to support my channel financially, then all you got to do is just join my community by paying a minimum of $1. You will help me buy a coffee every single month for as low as just $1. And in my community, we can all chat about these cool games and performance on my PC or Lenovo Legion Go. And you can stay updated with news and updates as far as the gaming industry goes. Again, all it would take is just $1. However, to join my community is absolutely free, and you'd be doing that by just hitting that subscribe button. I thank you in advance for your support and love because that's what keeps this channel going and growing. And I will see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, I'll say take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.